And it's Friki de Bici, riding my bici through the bicycle lane infested streets of Valencia, Spain. I got dropped. As I ride around these streets on a almost daily basis now, as I do this, I often do think back to working in that bike shop in Culver City, California, in Southern California, in I guess it was 2007-ish, 2008. It really was a cast of characters that worked at this place. And I'm gonna tell you a story about each one of them that I remember. Working in a bike shop, as it turns out, is similar to working in a bar or a restaurant for a couple of reasons. I worked also in bars and restaurants up until the pandemic. I managed a craft cocktail bar in Los Angeles. Prior to that, I worked in some other places with some very, very also talented people. The first thing is, when you work in that type of environment, bike shop definitely, and to a certain extent, a restaurant or a bar, a lot of the people that come in immediately come in with this feeling that expresses itself in an attitude that you are a loser because you work in a bike shop, or because you're a bartender, or because you're a server, or whatever. And when you are part of a group of people who know that they're not losers, yet people treat you that way, you immediately form a bond with one another because you're feeling the same thing. That is difficult to describe to people that haven't felt it. I mean, I guess we've all been treated like that in some part of our lives or another at some point. I don't know. But it happens near daily, if not hourly, when you work in that type of setting. It just does, and it sucks. So it's kind of why I love the lyrics of, say, Elliott Smith or Tom Petty or Bruce Springsteen. It's because they're able to put into words these things that we all feel every day. So when you find a group of people who can, I guess, what is it, empathize with you? Because they're there. Not that they have been there before, they are there with you now. It's a pretty cool thing. And in the restaurant and bar industry, the Bear got a little bad in its third and fourth season, but especially in the first season, they really captured this, you know? Like they could have gone so much further with it, but they did capture this idea that there's all these different people from all these different walks of life, everything from a world-class chef who has worked in the best restaurants in the world to people that are, which you might consider restaurant workers, right? Immigrants working in restaurants, working hard. And while they all ended up getting on the same page for trying to get this restaurant a Michelin star, before all of that, in their own ways, they felt what it was like to be working in a restaurant, and that's what they came together on, or at least part of what they came together on. It's a pretty cool thing because you do get to know people who you would not have necessarily crossed paths with otherwise. And then the other part of it is, when it gets busy, when you're, as they say, in the weeds, when the sales floor at the bike shop is super, super busy, or the dining room floor or the bar is super, super busy, and you wonder, oh my goodness, how am I gonna get through this? How are we gonna make all these drinks, or get all this food out, or take care of everybody who's on the sales floor in the bike shop and make them all happy and get them what they need? It's another way that you just come together with other people. And even maybe somebody doesn't like somebody else, maybe somebody's having a bad day, maybe there was an argument that happened. Whatever drama is going on, when you're professionals, and most of the people I've worked with, I've been lucky, they are all professionals, and they taught me how to be a professional in those settings, to be honest, to check your emotions at the door. When you are in the weeds, All that stuff gets set aside until after the shift. And you know what? Being in the weeds together might actually be the remedy for any disagreements you had. It just gets forgotten then and it never comes up again. And there isn't lingering stuff or resentment or whatever. It's pretty cool. It really is. And the one thing the bear could have did a better job of was showing these people after work, going out to a bar for a beer, where all the industry people go, and having what is really the post-shift, post-mortem. The purpose is to rehash everything that happened. And when you do that with people, you end up finding other areas where you have common ground. Like, I should do a video about all the people I worked with in the restaurant and bar industry. Like, oh my goodness, there's just so many people, so many stories. And people say, oh, you should work in hospitality. Well, you should work in hospitality at least once in your life, blah, blah, blah. I think the reasons why they say that you should, they never really nail them. And the bear kind of did that, but the bear could have done a better job at that, absolutely. So the bike shop. We'll start with the guy that would show up with the group rides and just like dominate. He was the strongest rider by far every single time. I guess I can use real first names because that doesn't really reveal anything. And this is all positive stuff. It's funny, whenever I use a fake name to tell a story, it makes the story feel less authentic to me. Which probably isn't the case because you don't know these people's names to begin with, but whatever, I'm gonna give in to my obsession and use their real names, just their first names. So Russ had spent a little bit of time in jail. He had a checkered past. This is one of those bike lanes here that is just like thrown on the side of the street. It makes you feel like you're not in Valencia for a minute. But he had some problems in the past, and now, last time I checked, he left California, lives somewhere else, and has a career doing a job he's really good at, and wife, kids. Like he's solid, and you can just tell he was a solid guy when you work with him. And he would be the person that maybe he wouldn't ride or exercise or do anything for a couple of months, but when he showed up at the group ride, he was the strongest of the bunch. He's just one of those people who was just naturally fit. And he didn't wear like fancy, you know, cycling clothes or anything like that. I don't want to say he showed up in street clothes, but it was pretty close. Everybody else was all kitted out and Russ never was. But the best Russ story comes from his time in the LA County jail. Those pigeons, I hate them. Scared the living hell out of me. And I actually try to not run them over. Like, I'd be doing society a favor. If you've ever lived in LA, you have undoubtedly seen these LA County jail buses that drive around. And they're essentially transporting inmates from one place to another. And Russ tells a story of being, now what do we have here? Yeah. See, I'm telling you, man, no place is perfect. Like, why would you do this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you can see, right? Like, why would this car do this into the bike lane? I just don't understand. He was being transported on this bus with a bunch of other people, and there was apparently an altercation that escalated, and this one guy was beating the hell out of this other guy on the bus, like really giving him a beating. And the bus driver, of course, didn't do anything. And I say of course because you can't blame the bus driver. If you know LA, you know the last thing you want to do is intervene in an altercation, because that's a surefire way to get stabbed or worse. Well, I don't know if it's worse, but or get shot. just the other morning. Every morning I open up my news feed, and of course I have the stories about bike lanes, the light stuff, but I'll just see that somebody was murdered in LA. The most recent one was an 18-year-old girl on a bus in a place called Westchester. She was trying to intervene in an altercation between her boyfriend and who turns out to be a gunman, and the gunman shot her and killed her. So I've been in a situation before where I've seen an altercation, and my instinct, my inclination is to jump in, but you can't. You can't do it. It's unfortunate. So the bus driver didn't jump in, and this guy's getting the hell beat out of him, which isn't funny. But when it sort of cools off, Russ says this guy in the back of the bus. I'm gonna be doing this by the train station where there's a lot of people, so can't be self-conscious. The guy gets up in the back of the bus and starts singing that song. You might know it. Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? Which the visual on that is equally as sad as it is funny. So that's Russ. One hell of a guy. The guy that managed the shop at the time, every once in a while we check in with one another. His name's Mike. Mike is a big, okay, tranquilo. Person just trying to park their most likely rented SUV. Give them a break. It's like they want to just pause for a minute and check the GPS. Something you don't see happen here quite as often. By the train station, maybe a little bit more often. But then this person's like, yeah, oh, okay, cool. Mike, big Social Distortion fan. They're a very popular, famous Southern California, Orange County punk band. It's been around for a long time. Fernando, the guy that sold me my bike at Good Bike here in Valencia, huge Social Distortion fan. That's why I knew. When I found that out, I'm like, okay, my suspicions that he's a good guy, confirmed. Mike, also, big Social Distortion fan. He also was a flair bartender in Las Vegas for a while. He knows magic tricks. He's a very, very good chef. He worked in hotels, restaurants, whatever. Talented guy. Also a bit of a prankster, a bit of a jokester. We would order food regularly at the bike shop, and it was known that I did not like wasabi. So we ordered Japanese food one day, and there was a big ball, like an ice cream scoop sized ball, a white ball, of what really looked like mashed potatoes. It was known that I love mashed potatoes. So Mike says to me, hey, I don't want these mashed potatoes. Would you like them? And anytime anybody gave up food, especially after riding for 3 hours that morning, you were on it. So I was like, yeah, of course. Of course, it never dawned on me, why would there be mashed potatoes with our Japanese food order? But I wasn't thinking straight. So I grabbed that scoop of mashed potatoes and put practically the entire thing in my mouth, only to discover the burning sensation that they weren't mashed potatoes. It was a big chunk of wasabi. Oh, one of the worst experiences of my life, which I guess makes me lucky. But yeah, that was Mike. He was always ready to play a joke. Mike and I were always in charge of getting the donuts for the post-ride snack. We would pick up a couple of dozen. It got to the point where the lady at the store knew me, so she would always throw in a couple extra. And I would always get a larger donut for myself that had chocolate chips on the outside, peanut butter and chocolate in the inside. And I could eat Thankfully, I don't do this anymore, but I could eat a solid 6 or 7 donuts. And I did after those rides. Mike ate a lot of donuts, but never as many as me. So there was Mike. There's another guy named Eric, whose father was, maybe still is, I don't know, probably was, a cult movie producer, I guess, in Los Angeles. Did some weird films and was one of those guys that didn't achieve like huge like mainstream success or anything, but he was sort of a cult figure, had a very strong cult following, and was well respected within the industry. And Eric said that when he was a kid, at the dinner table quite often were people like Martin Scorsese, right? Eric is one of the most creative and smart guys that I've met. And the way that he dressed, the way that he looked, if you walked into a bike shop, you would think, oh, this guy's a loser. I mean, a lot of people would, right? But you took 5 minutes to talk to Eric, and the way that he articulated his words and the types of thoughts that he had, you're like, oh, I was wrong. And that's the problem. One of the problems with people that take on this attitude in these settings is that they are almost always wrong. Even if somebody wants to work in a bike shop and only work in a bike shop for, say, the rest of their life, what's the big deal? You can make enough money to support yourself and maybe a little bit more, and you're enjoying yourself, and yeah, you're actually helping other people. Worst things in the world you can do than sell somebody a bike. I've never understood the attitude that, oh, what losers. Por favor. So I think Eric moved, and the funny thing about Eric and I, not a good way to add support to the you're not a loser story, but you know, if you get it, I guess. But we would go on our lunch break to one of the 2 7-Elevens that were on either side of the bike shop, and we would grab a beer each, and we would sit there and drink a beer and talk about the stuff that was happening in the shop. Really, it's a lot of fun. We'd have something to eat, drink a beer. Every once in a while, we go to the bar, Joxer's Daily, I believe it was called. It's probably not there anymore. And have chicken wings and a beer. And then we go back to work with a slight buzz. That was what Eric and I did. There was another guy that would come with us every once in a while. His name is Ian. Ian was one of those anti-establishment guys. He would walk around the shop he rode his bike almost solely for transportation, and he would have his pant leg rolled up. Big cyclist, but big urban cyclist, right? Like you would never see this guy in spandex. The one thing that always sticks in my mind when I think of Ian is that we would have the music on playing in the shop, and for some reason that Muse song would always come on. They will not control us. You know that song? I don't know why. It was like on once an hour, it felt like. And Ian would always contradict the song by saying, well, he would sing it. I can't do his melody, but yes, they will. They're controlling us like right now, He did the stock, so whenever orders would come in, he would receive them and then he would put them out on the floor. Who else? Oh, okay. I remember Jan, who I haven't talked to in a while, but we would keep in touch. I believe Jan still works in the bicycle industry, if I'm not mistaken. Jan was a pretty strong cyclist. He had thighs that were huge, and his calves were almost as big as his thighs. And he was the sprinter. On our group rides, when we were on the home stretch back to the shop, he would always make a show of it. He would be on somebody's wheel, and then he'd just break out and sprint to the finish. And most of the time, he would win the sprints. He had no fear. He would ride down hills like super fast. Which reminds me of another story. God, I have so many bike-related stories. Even from Southern California, where I didn't ride that much. But Jan, the thing I remember about him, Jan's Chinese, and if he had an orange, he would eat the entire thing. Now, when I say the entire thing, I mean he would eat the peel and all, everything, the whole orange. And the first time I saw him do that, I was like, Juan, what are you eating the entire orange for? And he said, well, I'm Chinese, and my family, my parents, they don't waste anything. Like, if you have something, you use all of it. And that's something that stuck with him. I don't know if he still eats the entire orange, but he did when we worked at the bike shop together. Jan liked to joke around, make fun of people. There was another guy named Mike. I remember that he had a motorcycle. He's a big motorcycle nut. He liked the latest gadgets. He had, like, the motorcycles that are like, Kawasaki's or whatever. And Mike, Jan almost always had a smile on his face. Like, his smile was infectious. He was one of those people who just a big smile all the time. And Mike was somebody who didn't always have a smile on his face. It's funny, the little things that stick in your mind, the little stories that you remember. Mike, as we were all standing around, I think waiting to open, eating donuts, Mike was complaining about something. He was sour about something, as he often is. And Jan just said to him, you're the only person in the world who can be eating a donut and not have a smile on their face and be complaining about something at the same time. And maybe it was his delivery that made it so funny, and maybe it was just knowing both of them that made it so funny. But that's the thing. What's that? That's the thing that I remember about those two. Okay, final story. Final story. This is the best one, and it's one of those things where I hope that my words do it justice. But when you show people, at least in our shop, when you showed somebody a bike, there were a couple of rules. If they were going to test ride the bike, you needed to get their license and a credit card, for obvious reasons. And the other rule was, when you took a bike down from the rack, if they wanted to test ride another one, and you had to put the first bike back, lock it up, and then get the other one, which could be a bit of a pain because these racks were 3 stories high, and they would often, well, if it was on the 2nd story or higher, you had to get a ladder and stand on the ladder, and sometimes pull down these super heavy mountain bikes, for example, from the top shelf. That's hard for anybody to do, but it was super hard for me to do with my 5'6" frame. Like, I always got really scared every time I had to do it. It wasn't easy. Think about it. Like, I get up to the top of the ladder, which I feel unstable anyway, and then I've got to, over my head, grab a 30-pound bike and bring it down to like shoulder level, and then walk down the ladder with it. I didn't like doing that when I was by myself stocking the place. To do it in front of other people that you're trying to sell bicycles to it just wasn't a good look. It was incredibly nerve-wracking, but it was what we were supposed to do, so that there weren't 2, 3 bikes sitting in the shop unlocked that somebody could just grab and ride away with, which one day happened. We didn't follow the rule. This dude came in, and that's what he was doing. He was all over the place, right? Like, all over the place in terms of what he wanted to try and what type of bike he wanted to look at. And he just wanted to create chaos. Because in this chaos, he was able to take the opportunity to hop on one of the bikes and bolt out that front door and get away. There were 2 other bikes there. Somebody else grabbed a bike from the back, and we all chased this guy through the streets of Culver City to no avail. Needless to say, he got away with the bike. He stole it. I don't remember what happened after that. I know there was talk of, oh, they might take this out of your paycheck. But whose paycheck? It was all of our faults. We were all complicit. So I think that the owner, Kyle, interesting but also really good guy, was super good to all of us. It's the kind of guy that, like, if you worked there and if you needed time off, like I was in college when I had this job, so there were times where I needed a week or two, either to work less or not work at all. And he was the kind of guy, if you went away for 3 months, people would go away. If you came back, you had your job. Like, he was just that kind of guy. When he found somebody that he felt was the type of person that he wanted, then you were essentially an employee for life. I'd seen people leave and come back 2 years later. It was almost like, yeah, it doesn't matter what the situation is, there will always be a spot for you. And that's a pretty cool thing to have. I hope that still exists in small businesses, especially in the United States and around the world, but that's the kind of place that it was. But yeah, those are my stories from the bike shop, and yeah, it's a special type of environment to work in, just like a bar or a restaurant. And those are the two things. You work with people and you interact with people who can really empathize with you because they feel many of the same things, and you help get each other through some really tense and busy times. And those two things, those are the core elements of experiences, little stories that I'll always tell over and over again, and that I'll definitely never forget. Thanks for watching this latest Friki de Bici video. Please like it. Please subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate it.